Alright, today I'm going to be reading this book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. One at a time. A friend of ours was walking down a deserted Mexican beach at sunset. As he walked along, he began to see another man in the distance. As he drew near, he noticed that the local native kept leaning down, picking something up and throwing it out into the water. Time and again, he kept hurling things out into the ocean, and our friend approached even closer. He noticed that the man was picking up starfish that had been washed up on the beach, and one at a time he was throwing them back into the water. Our friend was puzzled. He approached the man and said, "Good evening, friend. I was wondering what you are doing." "I'm throwing these starfish back into the ocean. You see, it's low tide right now, and all of these starfish have been washed up onto the shore. If I don't throw them back into the sea, they'll die up here from lack of oxygen." "I understand," my friend replied, "but there must be thousands of starfish on the beach. You can't possibly get to all of them. There are simply too many. And don't you realize this is probably happening on hundreds of beaches all up and down the coast? Can't you see that you can't possibly make a difference?" The local native smiled, bent down, and picked up yet another starfish, and he threw it back into the sea. He replied, "Made a difference to that one." All right, next is the meaning of things lies not in the things themselves, but in our attitude towards them. The meaning of things lies not in the things themselves, but in our attitude towards them. Antonio de Saint something. All right, the next one. A brother like that. A friend of mine named Paul received an automobile from his brother as a Christmas present. On Christmas Eve, when Paul came out of his office, a young boy was walking around the shiny new car admiring it. "Is this your car, mister?" he asked. Paul nodded. "My brother gave it to me for Christmas." The boy was astonished. "You mean your brother gave it to you and it didn't cost you nothing? Boy, I wish—" He hesitated. Of course, Paul knew what he was going to wish for. He was going to wish he had a brother like that. But what the lad said jarred Paul all the way down to his heels. He said, "I wish," the boy went on, "that I could be a brother like that." Paul looked at the boy in astonishment, then impulsively he added, "Would you like to take a ride in my automobile?" "Oh, yes, I'd love that." After a short ride, the boy turned and with his eyes aglow said, "Mister, would you mind driving in front of my house?" Paul smiled a little. He thought he knew what the lad wanted. He wanted to show his neighbors that he could ride home in a big automobile, but Paul was wrong again. "Will you stop where those two steps are?" the boy asked. He ran up the steps. Then, in a little while, Paul heard him coming back, but he was not coming fast. He was carrying his little crippled brother. He sat him down on the bottom step, then sort of squeezed up against him and pointed to the car. "There she is, buddy, just like I told you upstairs." His brother gave it to him for Christmas, and it didn't cost him a cent. "And someday I'm going to give you one just like it. Then you can see for yourself all the pretty things in the Christmas windows that I've been trying to tell you about." Paul got out and lifted the lad to the front seat of his car. The shining-eyed older brother climbed inside beside him, and the three of them began a memorable holiday ride. That Christmas Eve, Paul learned what Jesus meant when he has said, "It is more blessed to give." Dan Clark. Next. It is the heart that makes a man rich. He is rich according to what he is, not according to what he has. Henry Ward Beecher. Next. A simple gesture. Every day can be great. Anybody can serve because, wait, let me start over. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Mark was walking home from school one day when he noticed the boy ahead of him had tripped and dropped all of the books he was carrying, along with two sweaters, a baseball bat, a glove, and a small tape recorder. Mark knelt down and helped the boy pick up the scattered articles. Since they were going the same way, he helped carry part of the burden. As they walked, Mark discovered the boy's name was Bill, that he loved video games, baseball, and history, that he was having a lot of trouble with his other subjects, and that he had just broken up with his girlfriend. They arrived at Bill's home first, and Mark They arrived at Bill's home first, and Mark was invited in for a Coke and to watch some television. The afternoon passed pleasantly, with a few laughs and some shared small talk. Then Mark went home. They continued to see each other around school, had lunch together once or twice, then both graduated from junior high school. They ended up in the same high school where they had brief contacts over the years. Finally, the long awaited senior year came, and 3 weeks before graduation, Bill asked Mark if they could talk. Bill reminded him of the day years ago when they had first met. "Do you ever wonder why I was carrying so many things home that day?" asked Bill. "You see, I cleaned out my locker because I didn't want to leave a mess for anyone else. I had stored away some of my mother's sleeping pills and I was going home to commit suicide. But after we spent some time together talking and laughing, I realized that if I had killed myself, I would have missed that time and so many others that might follow. So you see, Mark, when you picked up my books that day, you did a lot more. You saved my life." John W. Schlatter. A thousand words will not leave so deep an impression as one deed. Henrik Ibsen. Next. Puppies for sale. A store owner was taking a sign above his door that read "Puppies for sale." Signs like that have a way of attracting small children. And sure enough, a little boy appeared under the store owner's sign. "How much are you going to sell the puppies for?" he asked. The store owner replied, "Anywhere from $30 to $50. The little boy reached in his pocket and pulled out some change. "I had $2.37, he said. "Can I please look at them?" The store owner smiled and whistled, and out of the kennel came Lady, who ran down the aisle of his store, followed by 5 teeny tiny balls of fur. One puppy was lagging considerably behind. Immediately the little boy signaled out the lagging, limping puppy and said, "What's wrong with that little dog?" The store owner explained. The store owner explained that the veterinarian had examined the little puppy and had discovered it didn't have a hip socket. It would always be lame. The little boy became excited. "That is the puppy that I want to buy." The store owner said, "No, you don't want to buy that little dog. If you really want him, I'll just give him to you." The little boy got quite upset. He looked straight into the store owner's eyes, pointed his finger, and said, "I don't want you to give him to me. That little dog is worth every bit as much as all the other dogs, and I'll pay full price. In fact, I'll give you $2.37 now and 50 cents a month till I have him paid for. The store owner countered. You really don't want to buy this little dog. He is never going to be able to run and jump and play with you like the other puppies. To this, the little boy reached down and rolled up his pant leg to reveal a badly twisted, crippled left leg supported by a big metal brace. He looked up He looked up at the store owner and softly replied, well, I don't run so well myself, and the little puppy will need someone who understands. Dan Clark, Weathering the Storm. Next. Nouns and adverbs. Hope is the parent of faith. Cyrus Augustus Bartle. Several years ago, a public school teacher was hired and assigned to visit chicken. Y'all excuse if there's background noise there. Cleaning yards next door at school. Where was I? Several years ago, a public school teacher was hired and assigned to visit children who were patients in a large city hospital. Her job was to tutor them with their schoolwork so they wouldn't be too far behind when well enough to. That didn't sound right. Hold on. Her job was to tutor them with their schoolwork so they wouldn't be too far behind when well enough to return to school. One day, this teacher received a routine call requesting that she visit a particular child. She took the boy's name, hospital, and room number and was told by the teacher on the other end of the line, we're studying nouns and adverbs in class now. I'd be grateful if you could help him with his homework so he doesn't fall behind the others. It wasn't until the visiting teacher got outside the boy's room that she realized it was located in the hospital's burn unit. No one had prepared her for what she was about to discover on the other side of the door. Before she was allowed to enter, she had put on a sterile hospital gown and cap because of the possibility of infection. She was she was told not to touch the boy or his bed. She could stand near but must speak through the mask she had to wear. When she had finally completed all the preliminary washings and was dressed in the prescribed coverings, she took a deep breath and walked into the room. The young boy, horribly burned, was obvi- obvi- obviously in great pain. The teacher felt awkward and didn't know what to say, but she had gone too far to turn around and walk out. Finally, she was able to stammer out, I'm the special visiting hospital teacher, and your teacher sent me to help you with your nouns and adverbs. Afterward, she thought it was not one of her more successful tutoring sessions. The next morning, when she returned, one of the nurses on the burn unit asked her, what did you do to that boy? Before she could finish a profusion of apologies, the nurse interrupted her by saying, you don't understand. We've been worried about him, but ever since you were here yesterday, his whole attitude has changed. He's fighting back, responding to treatment. It's as though he's decided to live. The boy himself later explained that he had completely given up hope and felt he was going to die until he saw that special teacher. Everything had changed with an insight gained by a simple realization. With happy tears in his eyes, the little boy who had been burned so badly that he had given up hope expressed it like this: they wouldn't send a special teacher to work on nouns and adverbs with a dying boy, now would they? Um, Excerpted from Moments with Mothers. Next. Blessed are the pure at heart. Blessed are the pure in heart. So often we are told of saints whose names and daily deeds, inscribed in books of gold, are certain to be seeing God in well rewarding joy. But when I see the pure in heart, I see a little boy. He shins up trees and he shins up trees and barks his knees. His has lizards in a box. He loves to read of dinosaurs, collect bright colored rocks. His grubby hands are gentle on the coats of dogs and birds, and he has quite a wisdom in native of words. I listen to his little prayers at night with quiet joy, and when I hear the pure in heart, I hear a little boy. He hasn't reached the age as yet to question and to doubt. He gravely takes his mother's words, and that's what life's about. Each day is gold, a shining thing without a wrong alloy, and when I hold the pure in heart, I hold a little boy. Gwen Belton Taylor. Next. Night Watch. Not he who has much and rich, but he who gives much. Eric Fromm. Your son is here, the nurse said to the old man. She had to repeat the words several times before the man's eyes opened. He was heavily sedated and only partially conscious after a massive heart attack. He had suffered the night before. He could see the dim outline of a man in a Marine Corps uniform standing alongside his bed. The old man reached out his hand. The Marine wrapped his toughened fingers around the old man's limp hand and squeezed gently. The nurse brought a chair, and the tired serviceman sat down at the bedside. Although the night the young man Marine sat in the poorly lighted ward, holding the old man's hand and offering words of encouragement, the dying man said nothing but kept a feeble grip on the young man's hand. Obviously, to the noise of the oxygen tank, the moans of the other patients, and the bustle of the night staff coming in and out of the ward, the Marine remained at the old man's side. Every now and then, when she stopped by to check on her patients, the nurse heard the young Marine whisper a few comforting words to the old man. Several times in the course of that long night, she returned and suggested that the Marine leave to rest for a while, but every time the young man refused. Near dawn, the old man died. The Marine placed the old man's lifeless hand on the bed and left to find the nurse while the nurse took the old man away and attended to the necessary duties. The young man waited. When the nurse returned, she began to offer words of sympathy, but the Marine interrupted her. Who was that man? He asked. Startled, the nurse replied, He was your father. No, he wasn't, the young man said. I've never seen him before in my life. Then why didn't you say something when I took you to see him? I knew there had been a mistake by the people who sent me home on an emergency furlough. What happened was there were two of us with the same name from the same town, and we had similar serial numbers. They sent me by mistake, the young man explained, but I also knew he needed his son, and his son wasn't there. I could tell he was too sick to know whether I was his son or not. When I realized how much he needed to have someone there, I just decided to stay. Roy Pumpkin. I was the best one yet. That brought tears to my eyes. I got tears in my eyes from that one. Next, an afternoon in the park. There once was a little boy who wanted to meet God. He knew it was a long trip to where God lived. So he packed his suitcase with Twinkies and a 6-pack of root beer and started his journey. When he had gone about 3 blocks, he met an old woman. She was sitting in the park just staring at some pigeons. The boy sat down next to her and opened his suitcase. He was about to take a drink from his root beer when he noticed that the old lady looked hungry, so he offered her a Twinkie. She gratefully accepted it and smiled at him. Her smile was so pretty that the boy wanted to see it again, so he offered her a root beer. Once again, she smiled at him. The boy was delighted. They sat there all afternoon, eating and smiling, but they never said a word. As it grew dark, the boy realized how tired he was, and he got up to leave, but before he had gone more than a few steps, he turned around, ran back to the old woman, and gave her a hug. She gave him her biggest smile ever. When the boy opened the door to his own house a short time later, his mother was surprised by the look of joy on his face. She asked him, "What did you do today that made you so happy?" He replied, "I had lunch with God." But before his mother could respond, he added, "You know what? She's got the most beautiful smile I've ever seen." Meanwhile, the old woman, also radiate, radiant with joy, returned to her home. Her son was stunned by the look of peace on her face and asked, "Mother, what did you do today that made you so happy?" She replied, "I ate Twinkies in the park with God." But before her son responded, she added, "You know, he's much younger than I expected." By Julie A. Manhan, Mannon. Maybe I got that right. Next, the prettiest angel. For the past 20 years, I have spoken to all kinds of audiences in the character of Benjamin Franklin. Even though the majority of my engagements are before corporate and convention audiences, I still like to talk to school groups. When I work for corporate clients outside of the Philadelphia area, I ask them to sponsor appearances in 2 schools as a service to their community. I find that even very young children relate well to the message I present through the character of Benjamin Franklin. I always encourage them to ask any questions they wish, so I usually get some interesting ones. The character of Benjamin Franklin often becomes so real to these students that they willingly suspend disbelief and are caught up in the dialogue with me, as if I am really Ben Franklin. On one particular day after an assembly for an elementary school, I was visiting a 5th grade classroom to answer questions for the students who were studying American history. One student raised his hand and said, "I thought you died." This was not an unusual question, and I answered it by saying, "Well, I did die on April 17th, excuse me. Well, I did die on April 17th, 1790, when I was 84 years old. But I didn't like it, and I'm never going to do it again." I immediately asked for any other questions and called on a boy at the back of the room who raised his hand and asked, "When you were in heaven, did you see my mother there?" My heart stopped. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. My only thought was, "Don't blow this." I realized for an 11-year-old boy to ask a question in front of all his classmates, it had to either be a very recent occurrence or of utmost concern. I almost knew I had to say something. Then I heard my voice say, "I'm not sure if she is the one I think she was, but if she is, she was the prettiest angel there." The smile on his face told me that it was the right answer. I'm not sure where it came from, but I just may have had a little help from the prettiest angel there. Ralph Artball? Art Artball? Maybe that's right. If not, it'll be okay. Alright, this is the end of these little stories. I thought they were real sweet. One about the soldier choked me up though, a little bit. If you want this book, you can get it on my website on eBay. I think I can put a link in here in the description. If you want it, it'll be on there. Thank you for listening. Entertainment purposes only. Please like, blah, blah, blah. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Make sure you tell people thank you every day. It only takes 2 seconds. Open the door for a stranger. Tip your waiters and waitresses. Be nice to the cashiers. And have a blessed day.